We have Sarah and Mike here, and we are here to talk about a campaign that ran, I believe, last fall. Is that correct? For HSBC. Actually, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and a little bit about what the campaign was about to begin with. Sarah, if you'd like to start.
Sure, so I'm Sarah, nice to meet you all, and thank you for not running out of the room. For those of you who didn't. So this is basically, I've been working at HSBC for about 5 years now, and we've been on a bit of a journey, starting off with around a small campaign called We're Not an Island, and we've been working on the proof about why we believe that is so. And this is one of our proof points of really about how we try and open up a world of opportunity for customers here in the UK, or potential customers.
Cool. The one we're going to talk about today is it's around financial abuse. And it came out of this, we did a campaign for the homeless bank account, so we were helping to, connect homeless people back into society. And this was the next step on it. And there was an insight that came out. It was, I think 69% of people in the UK don't understand that financial abuse is part of domestic abuse. In fact, 95% of domestic abuse cases have financial abuse as part of it. It's the reason people don't leave. You always hear those people go, well, if it was happening to me, I would just walk away. Well, what do you do when you don't have any money? Where do you go? And it takes up to 7 times for people to leave. So we thought there was a massive awareness campaign there that we needed to do, but obviously do awareness and then do some good and help and plug in. So we plugged in a charity, Safe Spaces, in the branches to bring that to life.
And I believe we actually do have a clip of the campaign as well. Why don't we start with showing that?
So this is the out of home that ran. So quite simple. When an abuser controls your finances, they control you. And just making people aware that that's what's happening out there. That's the reason people can't leave. But you'll see there was a thing saying, come to the branches, they're all safe spaces now. So if you were in this situation, you can now walk into any HSBC branch. Even if you don't bank at HSBC, you can go in there and get some help. This was an awareness piece we did. So we went into Spitalfields Market, and we just had this to, I think it's like 37,000 people go through Spitalfields in a day. And just to get people aware of the campaign, to put that out there. And we'll get to the clip now.
Okay. There you go.
When an abuser controls your finances, they control you. If you need help regaining your financial independence, speak to us, HSBC UK, opening up a world of opportunity.
So there's a lot. Actually, I'll go back to the sort of out of home. There's a lot going on here in terms of different types of media that you're working with. Sarah, can you talk a little bit about how that was chosen, and then Mike, elaborate a little bit about how the creative makes the best use of those spaces?
Yeah, sure. I think the awful thing about financial abuse, and I know it's a very dark subject matter, but it is what it is. As Mike said, it happens in 95% of domestic abuse situations, and it's everywhere. It's a classless problem. There's sadly probably people in this room who are either the victim of it or have been the victim of it. And the more we were learning about it, you realise, oh gosh, that's happened partly to me in some way, or it's happening in my family at the moment. It is all around. And I think the awareness was probably quite key. So we initially started with just the outdoor, and that was a national campaign. And the impact of that was so powerful. Even personally, people writing to me on my LinkedIn, writing to me on my work email, coming to talk to me. We realised quite quickly this was a bigger job that needed to be done. It started to be mentioned on chat shows on BBC, for example. So what we did next was obviously make the AV and put that on VOD. But also we thought about, where are individuals going that they are on their own, because typically in a kind of abusive situation, be it financial or otherwise, you're being isolated, you're being controlled. So one of my big things is I want to get on the back of toilet doors, which is not something typically an HSBC ad would be, but I was like, you need to be in those places where we can find people who are on their own because they have to be. So, and it wasn't just women's toilet doors, it was men's toilet doors as well. This is genderless. So it's the more you learn about it, the more horrific it is. And also the other thing we learned is it's so pervasive in day-to-day language. It's a bad breakup. It might not be. This is a form of abuse. So education was the key thing for us, and obviously highlighting that we have lots of support available to you, as do other companies, but ours is every branch. We've got work on our website, and you don't have to be a customer.
Yeah, I think, just to elaborate, that there's two audiences. There's the awareness piece where you have to talk to everybody, and then there's the people who need help. So you'll see things like this, it's big, it's in your face, it's in a public place. So that's the awareness thing. But then we had video on demand, which had a link to show you where your nearest branch was if you needed help. There was radio on Spotify, which was targeted for playlists where people would probably be listening on their headphones. So they're in their own, as Sarah said, in toilets, where you're by yourself. So we looked at the two audiences and said, well, how can we get the message to as many people as possible? But also, how can we really target where people are, where they need help?
And can you speak a little bit to, Sarah, how a message like this really fits in with HSBC's branding as well? And for anyone else in the audience, how they could use sort of these more purpose-driven advertising to help build their own brand?
Yes, I think it's important to say this is not a marketing initiative. We didn't make this up. This is part of our business of what we do day to day. So inside the bank, there are a bunch of people whose sole job it is to get people onto the financial system. So if you are off the financial system, life is very, very difficult. So this is what we brought to life with our homeless campaign, so the Vicious Circle work. And it's the same thing here. It's the same if you're a refugee or a victim of people trafficking. We have solutions to that. So it's literally if you are fleeing your home and you have no documentation and you don't have an address, you need somewhere to go. So it's part of what we do. And this was just us bringing it to life because, it is an education piece. People need to know that this solution is there for you, whether it's for you, for your family member, for friends, or your next door neighbour.
Mike, can you speak a little bit about if someone else, another company, let's say they have a good initiative like that, what's the best way in order to communicate that to an audience?
I think the key thing, and as ad agencies would tend to fall into this trap of finding shiny toys and going, well, we'll link banking with the coral reef, because it's about something. And I think with this is about financial abuse. So who better than a bank to sort that out? I think the first thing is find what it is you do, and can you actually do something with that, is probably the first step. And you'll look if Cannes is around the corner, so you'll see a lot of campaigns where people are sponsoring something that's not really relevant to their brand. I think just focus on what you do, stay in your lane basically, and just double down on that.
If I can build, we don't pretend to ever solve the whole problem. We're just one part of it, and we try and join up with other people who are experts in the wider. So we're not the experts on domestic abuse, we're the experts on finance. We're not the experts on homelessness, but we can help the homeless with their bank account. So it's just about finding the place where we have a role, and then getting the right people together, and then moving forward.
Does a lot have to go on in the background before even considering launching a campaign like this, in terms of getting your own house in order? Depending on what the campaign could be about, how much work has to go in advance before you consider let's launch a big out-of-home installation or a TV ad?
I can do it. So the homeless bank account, for instance, that was in its 4th year when we went out with that campaign. And that started off as a trial in a Liverpool branch. It was one thing. And you think about banks, it's all about mitigating risk, right? And you think, well, we'll open a bank account for homeless people. That's a massive risk. So it was a really brave thing to do. But that had to go through so many tests. So that's why it took 4 years. We could have gone out in year 1 with that campaign, but it wouldn't have been true. So yes, you have to get your house in order, because the minute you say this is what we're doing, you're shining a light on it, and there's going to be people going, well, is that really what you're doing? And they'll look into it. So, yeah, you've got to be, walking the walk.
What would you say, if there can only be sort of one takeaway from those in the audience considering their own media campaigns in terms of where things end up, but also with the creative that goes into that, what would you want people to take away from this campaign in particular?
Oh gosh, I think with this one, as Mike said, we had two sides to it. So it's about thinking about who are your users or end customers, or who might you be talking to. Typically we always go for one target and absolutely try and keep it simple, but we did have a dual role here, so it was slightly more broad than we would normally do in terms of the bespoke places that we went into. But the key thing for anything like the subject matter is think about who you are, what's authentic to you, and what are you actually doing. And if you're not sure, get a great partner in with you who can help build on your credentials.
And for me, it's always about the idea. From a creative thing, the idea is really, really important. And on this, obviously, it's about puppetry and control. But we had lots of different touch points. So in radio, for instance, it's very hard to bring the sort of visual metaphor of a puppet to life. But what we did is we had a woman talking about her finances and what she does with them, and that voice morphed into a man's voice and talking about how he controls it. So it's still doing control, this idea. So get the idea and then try and work with it in different touch points. Don't try and just cookie cutter everything and just put it out as one blanket thing.
Is there value in, I don't want to call this necessarily like a stunty necessarily, but it's a huge installation here, and it looks quite cool. Is there earned media value that you were targeting when you were considering this particular version of the advertisement?
Yeah, totally. It's something we learned on the We're Not an Island campaign. We did massive outdoor pieces, and always use the Ghostbusters 1984 movie for this reference. It was like, don't mix the streams because something bad will happen, right? So everything's but it's only at the end when they blow up the Marshmallow Man because they've mixed the streams that things are okay. So we did out-of-home ads, and they were more successful online because people were taking pictures of them. So we knew that there's value in that. Do something that grabs attention, that's worthy of being shared and posted, and then that amplifies your message. So 1% of people probably saw that, but then 90% of people who did see it probably saw it online.
What's the challenge in a campaign like this on a very dark subject matter, and making sure that comes across as we're stressing the importance, but we're not necessarily out to upset someone. You want people to think a little, at least positively, in response to the brand at all, in general. Sarah,
I'd say it's a fine line. We don't just do these sorts of campaigns. We have another creative style with Richard Ayoade currently ripping off his trousers in our latest ad. So we kind of do both sides of that. But this is an important subject matter, and I think as long as people understand why you're being quite serious, they're very open to it. And again, loads of people taking pictures of this, saying this is so important, and spreading it around. Again, sending me photos, coming to talk to me, just because they've seen the ad saying this is huge and we want. So I think if you have the right thing to talk about in the right way, then people are quite open to that.
Yeah. And we consulted the charities throughout. So even at this event, the charities were there to help people, just to make sure it wasn't triggering, because it's a very heavy subject. But you want to do something that grabs attention. It can't be too safe as well.
Last question from me. If I may pit you guys against each other a little bit, what do you think matters most, the placement of media or the really good creative media? Obviously they need to work really well together.
Perfect harmony.
I'm going with media, of course.
Do we have any questions from the audience? We have about a minute left. Time. Yeah, here, I can come to you with the mic.
Hi there. I'm interested to hear a little bit more about some of the challenges that you had putting this campaign together. It's a very worthy cause, but in any campaign that comes together, there's always kind of a roller coaster or up and down. I'm interested to hear perhaps what challenges there were and what you learned from that.
I think from a bank perspective, the work we'd already done on the homelessness bank account kind of gave us a lot of trust internally that we knew what we were doing. So I think that's always the danger area, which is you get a senior stakeholder who might not like it, but they understood the value of what we were doing. And actually inside the bank, our campaigns are actually creating a sort of an ongoing desire to do more and more. So, the campaign went out, we had teams across the bank trying to find other ways to help with this problem. So one of the ways that people can abuse you through banking is by sending you pennies on your banking app, and they put messages in the reference point. And it's really horrendous, and it's actually a large-scale problem. So the teams got together and put a blocker in on that and sort of highlighted it, and it's reduced it by about 48% just by flagging, saying, hello, don't do that. But then it is very complex, you don't necessarily know what the message is, and it can be very dark, but it's a start. So I feel quite lucky that the bank is all behind us and they want us to do more.
Yeah, and from an agency side, we've worked together for 5 years, so we have a good relationship, and I think that helps as well. We have this give and take. Whereas I think if we were new to each other, it would have been a lot more difficult to talk about and get through. But because we have the same goal, it wasn't that hard to do this one. I think that the homeless bank account was a lot harder.
Any other questions? Yep.
Hiya, I was just going to ask if you had many people come into branches, or if you noticed a big uptick in that since you started that campaign.
Yeah, the numbers are quite difficult to count because the staff don't count all of them, but we know we've had well over 100 people coming in to open new accounts. So you can only extrapolate that out. So it is having an impact, and sadly, hundreds of people coming in to see us.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Thank you both so much.
Cool.
In a few moments, we'll welcome on John Ria to talk about the cost of living crisis, how consumer behavior has changed, and the brand impetus to adapt in the current macroeconomic environment.